set auto-destruct sequence.
It's the time allotted that concerns me.
Recognize Picard, Jean-Luc, Captain. Recognize Riker, William T, Commander.
Maximum warp!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Warp Core Podcast. I'm UrzaMaster. Joining me as always, Lord Uther, Fert Derby. They may be in opposite directions on your screen, but we are here. It's Starfleet headquarters once again, diving into Strange New Worlds. And today we ask the question, what is Starfleet? And with that, with no further ado, Fert Derby, tell us a little bit about this documentary-esque episode.
Hi, everybody. We are going to answer the question today, what is Starfleet? It was directed by Sharon Lewis, who is a Canadian actress and author. She did not have the same molecular biology PhD credits that Valerie Weiss held for The Sellout Who Ate Its Tail, but don't hold that against Sharon. She did terrific. Our writers, one of which I'm very excited to talk about, well, both of them, Catherine Lynn and Alan B. McElroy. Catherine Lynn, of course, has worked on Strange New Worlds in seasons before, recently writing Space Adventure Hour, which was the Jonathan Frakes-helmed Clue homage that we got earlier this season, where everybody got to wear period clothes and act out of character. But I really want to briefly mention Alan B. McElroy. He has worked on Star Trek Discovery, a show that we have not covered here yet on the Warp Core podcast, but I knew him well before he joined Federation Space. He has worked in genre before. He worked on Wrong Turn in 2003 with Eliza Dushku. He wrote the big screen Spawn in 1997 with John Leguizamo, the live action animated Spawn. But I will always remember him as one of the writers of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This was if you briefly recall the Halloween franchise, Michael Myers was a serial killer running around Haddonfield, Illinois, and carving up babysitters and anyone who got in his way. The original film, made on a shoestring, made $78 million back in 1978. So naturally, they quickly made a Halloween 2, which also made a lot of money. And then they made a off-brand, they took a different turn with Halloween 3 and did a very scary Invasion of the Body Snatchers type riff. One of my favorite guilty pleasures of all time. We should do a whole pod just on Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. But fans were a little bit taken back. They said, well, where's the guy with the butcher knife? And so Michael Myers made his return 10 years after the original film hit theaters. Halloween 4 came out, and it was the return of Michael Myers. And why I remember Alan B. McElroy, who ended up writing most of the final production draft for that film, was that he had to write it in 11 days. And why did he have to turn it out so quickly? Well, because there was an impending Writers Guild of America strike of 1988. And here's where we get to Star Trek, folks. We're going to be talking a lot about the Writers Guild strike of 1988 when we're discussing the Bermanverse, and particularly the end of Season 1, beginning of Season 2, Star Trek The Next Generation. Because that Writers Guild strike, which we will go into some detail when we cover those on the Warp Core podcast, that changed a lot of working conditions and so forth, and it made for some very tense moments when Star Trek The Next Generation was trying to find its footing, trying to finish Season 1 strong and start Season 2. We're going to be, as I say, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about that Writers Guild strike of 1988. It was one for the record books. And in fact, this past Writers Guild strike that they just finished up in 2023, before that one took a lot of the modern notoriety, but the 88 strike is still one they talk about in terms of its length and in terms of what it managed to knock down, and projects that were canceled and changed and shuffled. And you had to write a Halloween sequel in 11 days, which you can do, but you got to be pretty good, and you got to not take a lot of bathroom breaks. So, Alan B. McElroy, welcome to Strange New Worlds writing staff after Discovery wrapped its voyages. And we'll actually be seeing him at least one more credit in the season to come, in season 3. So, very happy to see him back writing again for Star Trek. Gentlemen, this was a short episode, 40 minutes. And it was not notably short, as in you said to yourself, where's the rest of it? Why don't I have more? But structurally, the way it was composed as a documentary, not a mockumentary, but a documentary, no Marty DeBurgi telling us, trying to get us to go to 11. But this one was, it was kind of two things, right? It had the structure of this documentary, but it's also a classic Trek episode in which they have to deal with an unknown alien species and how that bumps up against their orders and missions and so forth. And how are they going to resolve this? I have to ask you, gentlemen, I already know the answer, and you'll hear it in my Warp Core ratings. Is this episode strong or weak because of the documentary setting? Would it have been as powerful or compelling or not if they had just done it as a straight episode with the Enterprise, this alien Jakaru, the conflict with the race that is sort of training it to be a battle-hardened weapon?
Because looks like you've been
if this had just been presented like the Salat who ate its tail,
you're making your own documentary
would you
right
have felt
now
as strongly about it? Do you think
the Grand
that
Jedi
the
and
structure
the Warp Core
enhances
podcast,
it?
which who shouldn't?
It's
I mean,
neutral, or does
really,
it
anytime
distracting?
you want to reach out to us,
When
we
Star
would love
Trek
to be a
Strange
part of
New
it.
Worlds has done some pretty interesting things and played with
Urza,
formats, they're once again
this episode
doing
for
this.
me, the documentary
But how do you
piece-
think it applies? And like I say,
I know we keep harping on this, but man, the acting, like you could feel the emotion through the screen as they're playing these roles and trying to balance out each side of it, right? Like the good and the bad of Star Trek, being told you have to follow an order no matter what. You know, whether you're privy to that information, it's classified, you're on a need-to-know basis. I'm sure our own soldiers go through that every day. Like this had a touch to me, or like a taste to me of like a little bit of a Starship Troopers, just with the whole. I know that was a little more tongue-in-cheek, but kind of had that feeling a little bit to it. And I like how there was this idea of a mockumentary that, that was brought up. But the way they shot it, it could have been preachy, and at the end. I feel like there was just a little preachiness in it, just a tinge, but not enough that I felt it took the episode off the rails. I think this was some of the most compelling Star Trek I've ever seen. It, for me personally, this might be one of the greatest episodes I've ever seen of Star Trek, and I know I've said that a lot with Strange New Worlds, but I mean, just. You brought it up last time. Banger after banger after banger. I mean, if we start stacking these shows up at some point against each other, the amount of times it's going to be like a home run derby. Strange New Worlds is, in my opinion, is hitting it out of the park almost every single time. So, with that being said, I'd love to hear obviously your thoughts on the episode, and if you saw it possibly from the same perspective as well.
My gut reaction, I didn't like it at first. I didn't like the documentary feel getting into the episode. I thought it was kind of a novel approach. And it really reminded me of Star Trek 3 and a little bit of the TOS episode where we see Pike. And it's just the cage. And this gave us our explanation. How did they get that footage? And I think that's what they're building this Ortegas' brother guy up to be, is like, he's the one just filming all of this. and that's how the whole cage episode plays out. So now that I think of it that way, I do like it a bit better. I loved the idea of a giant butterfly creature that has this tremendous power, and there's these two warring societies, and Starfleet is very Section 1-y, kind of playing both sides a little bit, but there's this overarching human, we must do what's right. Yes, we follow orders. Yes, we're going to do everything in our power to stick to those orders. But when it becomes plain that the right thing needs to be done, Starfleet does the right thing. I love it because it as much as it's simple, because it's a very simple story. It's so impactful, and I love what you said about the acting, because I think that's what carries this episode heavily. Is that you really see this questioning of orders, this questioning of authority, this documentary which is trying to expose Starfleet, which a lot of documentaries, that's the intent. And I think about some of the documentaries I really love, and I'm not a big documentary guy, but a lot of them are like, they have an agenda. And I think you can enjoy a documentary and separate the agenda from it. And then I think there are documentaries that beat you over the head with their message, regardless of what, the actual footage ends up showing you. And that's where I think there's that future state hopeful factor in this episode that I hadn't picked up on while I was watching it. But as I've mused about whether I like this episode or not, it occurred to me that, like, with documentaries I've seen where it's like out to expose GM or the government or whatever, the best ones are the ones that have an agenda, have an idea, have a conclusion that they want to make, and then come away with a different answer. The actual science of having a hypothesis, trying to gather the data. You can cut a documentary any way you choose to tell the story you want to tell. This has actual integrity. And that, to me, because I do think there's a little bit of messaging going on here. I think that's true of Star Trek. And it's beautiful, and I love it. But the biggest thing I took away is that, where it could have been preachy, and it had every right and every ability, instead it took what I would think of as the higher ground. Rather than beating somebody down or, exposing someone for the right reasons, but it ends up with the wrong outcome, it shows that you can question, and that even in the circumstances of those who are buying into something that they don't necessarily agree with because they think it's a means to a positive end, there's humanity behind it. And sometimes, even in the situations where you feel like it's going in one direction, and for most of this episode, I thought for sure this is going to end up one way. And then it takes you in a totally different direction. You're like, oh, this isn't a story about blindly following orders. This is a story about doing the right thing. I didn't think they were going to do the right thing the whole time. And then to also preserve one's, strength in that moment, even though potentially you're making a big enemy, or potentially you're doing something that might, violate prime directives, or all these things, to come out on the other side and have this other conclusion and have this sort of inspirational moment. That's what Roddenberry wanted from Star Trek in the beginning. He wasn't out to just criticize the Vietnam War. I mean, there are plenty of shows of the era that just hit that right on the nose, and really didn't attempt to make any sort of sense of it. Star Trek's absolutely critical of where we're at right now in usually American society, but global society, and for all the right reasons, but they don't beat you over the head about it. They don't make you feel bad about it, because there's a lot of people out there that are along for the ride that want to do or are doing the right thing. That's what this episode's about. It's about those people who really want for the best. They're doing what they're told because they think it's right. And when they think something is not quite right, they will step up and do the right thing. The line is just different for some folks. There are definitely people on that Enterprise that were like, Captain's orders, Starfleet orders, I'm going to buy in. This is how it's going to go. It doesn't feel right, but doggone it, this is our orders. We're going to hold up to it. And then, when the chips are truly down, they do the right thing. That's the storytelling we watch Star Trek for. We want to feel that the best outcome can happen no matter what the odds are. And this episode would have had every right of like walking away, tail between the legs, like Starfleet doesn't always get it right. I don't feel great about it, but at some point duty is duty. That would have been a great episode too. I mean, quite frankly, and very real, true to life. There, you brought up soldiers. For sure, there are soldiers who feel like that. Like, I don't know that was right, that what we did, but we had orders. We had to do it. Maybe later people pay consequences for it. Maybe not. War is hell. The nice thing about Starfleet and what's interesting about the title is that they're not a war machine. And that's something that I think everybody who watches Star Trek at one point or another thinks, like, what differentiates Starfleet and the United Federation of Planets from an empire, like the Klingons or the Romulans or the Gorn hegemony? Like, what makes them different? This is what makes them different. And that is just the vision there, because I think there are a lot of original series fans who, or next gen fans who feel like some of this isn't Star Trek. That's, if there's nothing else in Strange New Worlds that is exactly aligned with what Roddenberry set out to create originally, it's this episode. It's this right here. The belief that humanity can and does do better in the future, despite wherever we're at right now.
Well, yeah, and your last line is something that I say to my students all the time. Again, imagine if we, as humans, could just, and it sounds cheesy, but all get along, how advanced we would be. I mean, we're advanced right now, at least that's our perception in 2025, right? But, because I'm sure in 1850 they thought they were advanced,
oh, yeah.
Right? So it's all in perspective, but I think we would be just so further along, who knows what we could do. And that's been the beauty of this, right? When humanity finally gets it right and puts their differences aside, look at what we can do and look at the moral compass we can have, right? And everyone's moral compass is different, of course, but I think we can all agree that lives are important, no matter what, alien life, quote unquote, not like that's important. Whether it's a single amoeba that you're trying to cut open as the Enterprise D, spoiler alert, or you're seeing something like this, where this quote unquote alien entity that is supposedly something that just wreaks havoc just wants its children to live, because what parent doesn't?
Yeah.
Or what animal doesn't? And though that's viewed in different ways, whether it's a survival instinct or, they always say what separates us from animals is our ability to laugh and love, unconditionally, that we would do the same thing for our children. And it's a simplistic but important message. Sometimes the straightforward, simple message is just as important or even as complex as the complex message you're trying to get out there or hide. And I don't think they were trying to hide anything in this episode. And that's what made it amazing, along with how the actors carried everything out. Just, to me, stellar episode on so many levels. Just and we've talked about this too before. Just the special effects absolutely blow you away. Yeah. I'm watching a movie every week, man. Like that's how good it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you bring up a really good point too. Is like, I think sometimes in these episodes where we're dealing with aliens, like true blue aliens, like different life forms and stuff. I think back to Next Gen, like at Farpoint. It's a Farpoint story. There's an alien having advantage taken of it, who just wants to live. I mean, and that's really what's happening here. And then to make the choice, I think the heart-wrenching moment of this episode, what really got me, was that this alien knew that it was a imminent threat to those around it, regardless of who they were, and chose to end itself by flying into the sun, which it cannot be, in any respects, a peaceful end. The whole just idea of, please just make sure my kids are okay. And I hope this isn't a spoiler alert for anybody, but it brings me to this brilliant moment in the latest Fantastic Four movie, where Johnny Storm is ready to put it all on the line to save the day. And I won't give too much away by saying nothing more, but those kinds of moments, especially as a parent, because it's the children in this case. There's not a parent or an uncle or an aunt, grandparent out there who, in this kind of situation, life and death situation, they had that opportunity to ensure that those children will be safe, wouldn't give it all. There's nothing that hits home more. Nothing that hits home more. And I think it also calls to a lot of what's going on just in the world. That there are a lot of parents out there right now who, in various parts of the world, I'm not calling any one specific situation out entirely, but there are parents whose kids are really suffering right now. And I'm sure those parents are making what could potentially be the ultimate sacrifice to try and get them to just the next day to possible safety. So yeah, you want to talk about emotionally impactful writing. Strange New Worlds has absolutely knocked it out of the park. Every episode. Even like something as simple as the zombie episode, which could just be a great zombie episode, has this whole revenge story / self-sacrifice / honorable death, where it's just like, God damn. Like, did they ever get it wrong? And I'm sure for some folks, like, I was hesitant to like this episode at first because of the documentary style, because of how it was orchestrated, but there was enough of a foil to the documentary that I bought in. And now, with the perspective of looking back, because at the time I was like, geez, I don't know. Eric really likes this, or Lord Uther really likes this episode. Like, do I like it as much? I'm not sure I'm as enthusiastic, but now that we've talked, and that's what the Warp Core podcast is all about. Fans out there, if you're not subscribed, subscribe now, because you might love an episode, you might hate an episode, but when you really sit down and think about it, because who really sits down and talks to other people anymore? Let's be real. Whether you're listening on Spotify or watching us on YouTube, or just talking with your friends about the Star Trek episode we talked about, you're definitely going to find that it can change the game for you. With that, Warp Core ratings, Lord Uther. I think Fert Derby was beamed away by the Q, but suffice to say, I believe he enjoyed this episode. Where do you fall on the Warp Core scale?
Well, right now I'm getting an incoming transmission from Mr. Fert there. He is saying he's going to give it a 6 out of 7. Didn't get much beyond that, but that's okay, because sometimes those transmissions get cut off. I'm pushing the Warp Core beyond its maximum ability. I'm actually going to go 8 out of 7. And I always said I would never do that. But the acting reached me on such an emotional level, and the PTSD that a lot of these, and that's, I'm not taking this away from anyone that has true PTSD, right? But but some of that they were showing a little bit or trying to get across, and I'm a big believer in helping veterans and backing veterans, and I understand the whole PTS thing. I don't understand it. I've never experienced it. I'm very empathetic towards it because of what people have sacrificed so we can be free all the time. I think that's another reason why this one hit me a little bit harder. And if this entire acting cast doesn't win some kind of an award at some point,
Yes.
it's all a sham. It's a complete sham because this series, these actors are incredible.
I couldn't agree more. This is an award-winning episode. I'm going 7 out of 7. I was hesitant to have that level of enthusiasm. I was leaning 6. But you're right. The emotional impact here, which writing can only get you so far. There are plenty of emotional episodes that are like 5 out of 7, 6 out of 7, maybe even 4 out of 7. But the talent of the actors behind this writing is, it's two parts of the same equation, and you get varying strengths on either side. But when they're both harmonious like this, you feel it. And I mean, Uhura in this episode is just like, absolute cream of the crop when it comes to conveying this range of emotion. She's a brilliant actress, by the way. And nothing against any other modern actress out there, but how do you achieve such a spectrum of range? I've been in a stage play. I did fine. I can't even approach D-list actor level talent, and that's generous to say I can't approach it. She's on another level, and obviously I think if the right parts come her way, this is somebody who's going to be huge. I could say that about damn near the whole cast. Anson Mount, if they remade True Grit with Anson Mount, I'd watch it. Or any of the Westerns. I think he'd be a great Western actor. He could do a Die Hard type movie. Everybody in this cast is so multi-talented. But the beauty of that is they come together in moments like this. And it's an episode like this, and I always say there's a heavy episode and then they kind of foil it back. The next episode that shows this range of talent. And this is the harder hitting one. But I think next time on the Warp Core podcast, when we talk 4.5 Vulcans, we'll have even more to say. Because we say it every week, it seems like, but this Strange New World show does not seem to get it wrong in any capacity, whether it's this huge tense level, high sci-fi zombies, or even just I'm waiting for the episode about the routine mission that just goes routine, and maybe we got some of that coming down the pipe. But until next time, get out there, watch Strange New Worlds if you haven't yet. I don't know why you'd be watching this because spoiler alerts everywhere, but continue with us here at the Warp Core Podcast. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, drop us a comment. How did you feel about what is Starfleet? And, as always, make it so.